Thank you.
Ramsgate. Going to be council further.
Is that for us?
Yes.
We've just got,
I just need to do the formalities first. We're just going to do formalities.
Pay the money.
first item then is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
Fine,
Chair?
listening.
It says quite clearly in the rules.
Apologies for absence.
We have apologies from councillors Alban, Wing, Young and Crittenden, who all have personal commitments. I have details thereof.
Thank you.
And councillor... and the Mayor, Councillor Arrow.
Item 2 is declarations of interest. Does any councillor have any declarations of interest to make? No? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jan Dunn, and I'm here to represent Kent Film Foundation. Some of you know me, and those who don't know me, I think have probably seen me around about the town a lot, because I'm quite visible as a filmmaker and working with young people in the town, and have done for many, many years. I'd just like to introduce two of the representatives we've got with us from our Board of Trustees today. Alan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Alan Jones, and I currently work in the film industry on Bonds and Star Wars and everything else, but I also work alongside Jan when I can, and that's getting better, and being able to see two of our people from Folkestone, Ramsgate and that area on the sets in Pinewood was quite an emotional
He's
moment.
talking about some of our kids.
Yeah.
So,
Brilliant.
I turn up on Saturday mornings on a wet
And Alan helps
Folkestone,
us.
or I give a lecture, I give a chat on design or art or props, and with a little help from me, two people ended up on the film set, which is quite blowing. So
Yeah, well
he's
done.
also underplaying himself. He's mentored an awful lot of other young people as well through Kent Film Foundation and Screen South and the work we do with the FI Academy in partnership with them. So, Emlyn?
Yeah, I'm Emlyn Gregory. I've been a foster carer for the best part of 20 years. It's how I came to know Jan. And I've been involved for the last few years with Jan's charity, which I'm now the chair of. She's a force of nature, you're going to find out.
And we've got present with us right now is Joe. Can speak, Joe, because I don't know how loud you are.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can you just introduce yourself, Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe Blair, and I know Jan from many years ago, and I worked in the cinema industry for 20 years, and I'm now freelance in consultancy and production.
So Joe's here to answer any questions that you might have about the running of a cinema that we don't necessarily have the answers to. So basically, I think that, is anybody not aware of what we're trying to do? Correct. Okay. Well, we are just as a summary, we've been trying to get a premises, a building, probably before we actually formed officially as a charity, because Alan and I and some other people were involved in working with youth before we even set up the charity. It was Peter Gilroy, who was the KCC leader, or whatever they call them, the head of KCC at the time, in 2009, when we were running a young offenders programme, and we had an unprecedented success with them. We didn't realise it was unprecedented, we weren't even thinking about the results. And we got 97% of them back into education or work.
Wow.
They were expecting a 37% success rate. So that was when Peter said, you have to do something officially, you've got to forget about having it as a non-profit arm, set up a charity. So he came on board and helped us to set up the charity, and I grabbed a load of people. I don't think any of you were involved at that point, because you have to rotate trustees and stuff. Laura Sands got involved, she was one of our early patrons, and then she became a trustee when we set the charity up, and was very supportive. And so at the moment we've got about 7 or 8 trustees. They're all engaged in some way or another, either in the film industry or with young people or youth and whatever. In Joe's case, we've got Jo on our board of trustees because she has a wealth of knowledge of programming cinemas to make money and running a cinema as a business, as do a couple of our other advisors who are listed in our pamphlet. So we did try and get a building sometime before, which some of you are also aware of, but right now the Granville is a perfect fit for us because of our skills and our skill base. Our skills in raising huge amounts of money to do a refurb, and also particularly in running a business, running a cinema as a business and an art centre as a business. So I don't know if any of you have got any questions. We have passed a pamphlet around. We've got lots of plans for the building if we can get it. I think, how many of you have seen the film that we put together, which hopefully have just given you some idea of the kinds of level of people we can get supporting us. It was just a tiny little snippet of the, and I think our open letter probably does more for that as well, tells you the kind of people who are supporting us. We've actually got other venues in not just Ramsgate and Thanet, but also want to support us getting in the building because they know we'll run it properly and they'll be able to come in and use it in a partnership sense with us. And we already partner with a lot of other charities in the town and in the wider South East Kent actually as well. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. We have passed around a few of the business plans. But if anybody's got any questions, Joe's here to answer any questions about running a cinema. And we're here to, I'll just see if Felicity's there as well. Felicity was going to come, who's one of our architects, but she's not there at the moment, who's been involved in Burr Island in Devon, which is a chalk-based island, rebuilding the hotel, the famous hotel that's there. So she was going to come here to answer any kind of architectural questions about the green build. But it's definitely going to be a green build. We've got lots of plans with that as well, and opening up the roof terrace and what have you.
Can I ask you what Ramsgate Town Council can do for you?
Well, the reason we wanted to come here today to present to you and make sure that you all, I know the people who aren't here know about us, you are all aware of what we want to do and our aims to be the chosen organisation to run that building and be handed it as a community asset transfer so that we can take it on and activate all these plans and rebuild it and then run it as a community art centre.
Right.
And a charity running it. So we're not profit-based. Any profit we have is going to go straight back in and for us to run our youth projects. All we need to do is earn enough money so we can run our youth projects in there and expand them and have a youth theatre. All our youth projects are free to participants.
Hi, do you actually own the Granville now? Because as a Thanet District Councillor, I thought that it was owned by Thanet District Council and was up for sale. So have you actually bought it, or are you thinking about buying it, or steps towards buying it?
Well, it's not up for sale, it's owned by TDC. We want to get you all on board and support our bid as an organisation and all the charities we bring with us, and they're listed in there. Most of you will know those charities as well. We want you to support our bid wholeheartedly. We want the whole of Ramsgate Town Council to support our bid to take it on as a community asset transfer. We've spent 4 years trying to get it approved as a community asset transfer, and it was approved at a meeting in July, was it?
Yeah, early July.
July, yeah. David? Yeah, and that was a long time coming. So they approved for it to be considered for a community asset transfer. We have a 3-month window that started on September the 20th. Was that what you told me? September the 20th? A 3-month window where people can bid for it. We'd already put a bid in some time ago, and we also put a bid in for it to be a community asset transfer. So now we are now updating our bid, now that we've got an open letter with the kind of support we've got, and we'd like to also have in our bid that Ramsgate Town Council would like us to be in that building.
Okay,
so that's why we're here to present to you. And I don't know if we have competitors. At the moment, I don't think there is anybody else. But we would expect a negotiated community asset transfer, which can range from anything from £1 for the whole freehold and a transitionary period where the council continue with responsibilities of such like of insurance and such like that over a negotiated period. That's what we would hope for, and anything down from that, from a very long-term lease, which would be a minimum of 35 years, so that because we can't raise the money unless you've got our names on the lease.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. That answered part of my question, was the length of time you've got to put together the
competition.
The bid. Is this in any way going to interfere with Project Motorhouse, which has been, well, that too is scheduled to be, if I use the term loosely, arts and entertainment, cinema.
Well, we were working on this since 2007. I was a bit
Project Motorhouse is quite a long-standing, and they've been here and spoken to us a few times already.
Yeah, I haven't come
Janet
because I
Fielding and
haven't
Peter
been,
Capaldi
yeah,
and,
I know Janet really well, I've known her for
so
30 years.
it's not in any way in competition
Nothing to do
with
it at all.
Project
Absolutely
Motown.
nothing.
And first
so
and
we were here
foremost, it would
first.
remain a cinema,
Yeah.
which we haven't got cinema.
Indeed, yes, thank you for that, thank you.
First and
Yeah,
foremost.
and-
Thank you.
Councillor
I'd
Heather.
like to reassure you, Councillor Piper, Project Motorhouse, I'm on the board of Project Motorhouse, and this doesn't in any way impinge on Project Motorhouse's work, which is mainly in schools, actually mainly in the Royal Harbour Academy at the moment, but there isn't a building, and there's quite a lot of work going, exactly.
You know, I was actually offered that building,
Yeah.
the same time I was offered Granville in 2007. I turned my back and walked away from that building. I can't raise that sort of money. There's no way. I haven't got contacts that could raise the sort of money needed for that. It's completely different venture than this. This is achievable for me and our team and the people we're dealing with.
Just as a matter of point too, Project Motorhouse left the building because it was sold privately by the council.
Somebody owns it now.
So Project Motorhouse's focus at the moment is doing outreach work with children around. It is not a building-based charity as it stands.
Yeah, I don't
Very
think related to film at all.
No.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate that building got sold,
Yes.
and we couldn't buy it. Yeah, it was sold.
It changed their plans
Yes.
considerably, unfortunately.
So, yeah, how do you make it sustainable?
Well, in the business plan, we would be making it. How do you make a cinema sustainable, Joe? I mean, I'll start talking. You can interject.
It requires a restaurant. Or
Yeah, various streams of revenue. I mean, we would be expanding the kiosk cafe and making that into a proper cafe and opening up the roof. So the cafe would also expand into a little bar on top of the roof. So the cafe would bring an income. We've been running the youth projects on a sort of average income of approximately 60k per year. So that there's no reason why that would not continue. If we're in a building, we have our own premises, we're likely to get more money for our youth projects. The cinema itself, we've estimated if half the population of Ramsgate only, not Thanet, but if half the population of Ramsgate went to the cinema twice a year, that would bring in a reasonable amount as well as the revenue. We would hope that looking at the build, we would get the opportunity to expand the building so that we could create a restaurant. We're not in the business of running a restaurant. I don't want to run a restaurant, but we would franchise that out, which would at least cover the cost of potentially 2 cleaners. We would transform, we've got an idea to build an Airbnb on top of it, which would be part of the business as well. So that's acceptable as part of the business. The Airbnb would bring in enough money to pay another member of staff, even on a very conservative working out of how much it would bring in. And we've got an arrangement with a local hotel who would do the turnover of the sheets and everything. So that would bring in another stream of revenue. Events would bring in a stream of revenue. I mean, I'm hoping we can get the touring companies like the Touring Globe, Touring RSC, those kind of levels of performances in there, because we retain one cinema as a theatre, so it would be a cross between theatre and cinema, and we'd actually expand to 2 cinema screens. But there's an argument in having more than one cinema screen, isn't there, Joe, in the income that we're talking about?
Yeah, definitely. You start building from the very start. It's called, sort of programming. That's what I used to do, which is just like scheduling, the films, what you show, and getting to know your audience. And you're required to take bigger films, blockbuster films for. It always has to be a week, might be 2 weeks. But if you've got 2 screens, then you can, like say you're playing a Bond film, you can continue that running for as long as you want to, but also have a variety. So you can program and you adapt according to what the admissions figures are like and information from your managers. But having 2 screens it's a fantastic way of just having a variety.
The other option, Joe. Could you talk to them about the option that we've been talking about, which is one of those because Joe used to work for Picture House Cinemas, who have a huge number of independent cinemas. When you book Picture House, for instance, or somebody who's actually a programmer, and part of your outgoings each month are hiring them to do it properly, and they work out how to build your audience properly and that kind of thing.
And it can be really difficult if you're a standalone cinema because there's so many films. So actually keeping up to date on what's good and what's not, because part of a programmer's job is seeing them in advance, knowing how much is going to be spent marketing them, and especially if they're sort of any good. So it's quite a good way, if you are a standalone cinema, to have a contract with a sort of company who is absolutely on top of it and has got the kind of ways to help you to get all the films that you want and but you keep on top of what's moving on in the industry. So I mean, I'd say the Independent Cinema Office, that's one of the main organisations who does this.
Yeah, that's probably what you
used to do. But with Independent Cinema Office, I think part of the sort of benefits with them too is that they're used to the building up, even before the cinemas opened, starting to get audience engagement then, and they're being tuned into different grants and all sorts of things that helps the business as a whole beyond just helping you with the film selections.
Yeah, and as a charity, we can apply for way more grants than the council could have applied in that building. It opens up a load more grants for us. I've had to transfer, as some of you know, 2 grants from the Film Hub South East over to Folkestone, where we have a relationship with Folkestone and the Porterhouse there. I've had to transfer money over there to be spent on building audiences because we weren't in the Granville in time. And they're aware of our plans and us trying to get in there. So Film Hub South East would probably come on board almost immediately with building your audience funding. I have a whole plan with every cinema and including the theatre, we'll hold two rows of seats back for every performance, which will go free to certain postcodes in Ramsgate, which is likely to be the Newington estate. And then they're sold on standby on the day if people from those postcodes haven't booked them.
Don't forget
so
Northwood.
Cinema for everybody.
Don't forget Northwood.
I want to open cinema for everybody. Sorry?
Don't forget Northwood.
Well, we'll look specifically at the postcodes, and we'll actually take advice from people like you as which postcodes it should be, because we can't offer it to everybody.
Is there scope for live performances as well as film?
Yeah, stand up. We've got stand up. Some of the people who are supporting us are stand up comedians. Dave Fulton, some others we've got who would love to come to Ramsgate and do gigs. Ramsgate Music Hall is partnering with us because his venue isn't big enough. He needs capacity, and even when he's got capacity, there's no room for anybody to walk around.
Yeah.
So we get a partnership with him. I mean, there's higher level artists that I can access as well that he didn't realise we could access, that would love to come and do performances in Ramsgate and one-off and stuff. Sabina Desir is one of our partners. She needs something for the jazz sessions, which are in the Gulbenkian at the moment. She could bring some of them here as well. So we can build audiences with that. I mean, you probably know all the usual suspects, the people who are supporting us and with us and want us in there. So I know our time is probably
at the end of the day, what's going to happen to the Granville? If it's Sunday,
yeah, tell me your story.
Sunday I was walking past the Granville and just came across 2 young lads trying to break in through the back door. And I just said to him, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, it's derelict, I want to explore it." You know, and you can see every day there's something else, there's another bit of graffiti.
It has already been broken in.
If something's not done with it, it's going to be lost to the people who've done it.
So
we have no cinema. It'd be lovely to have a proper, independent, lovely cinema in Thanet. Thanet's demographics changing recently. I think it's all going
so we have
to
people
fit
coming to the Live
nicely.
Opera as well. The Live Opera recording, Live National Theatre.
So what's
which you can go to the view for, you'll be able to come to Ramsgate for it.
Fantastic.
what's TDC's reaction?
Well, we haven't gone to TDC yet because I want you to back us when we're going for our bid. I am going to put the bid in again, but I want to put that bid in saying Ramsgate Town Council support us wholeheartedly. That's what I'd like to do.
I mean, my worry is that it might be easier for them just to say, let's sell it. But that, you know, in the history of Thanet,
but this
selling off property has not gone well in the past. You know, there's been empty spaces for 20 years where nobody's gone into it when it's been sold.
Project Motorhouse being a classic example.
It's a classic example.
Exactly. I mean, the building's completely derelict and there's people breaking into it the whole time and there's nothing to do about it.
To avoid that.
Yeah, and that's already happened to us when we had the money actually ready.
Yes.
And I didn't want that to happen again. That's why I'm coming in this time to get proper support for when we go into TDC.
Yeah.
We won't go in, we'll just be sending
It's sort of iconic, isn't it, the Granville? I grew up, my sister did tap dance lessons when she was 4 in the Granville, you know, with Mrs. Hales or somebody. But, you know, it's iconic for the people of Thanet. It should be saved. It should be used.
Yes. I don't think there'll be any problem getting the the town council support.
Well,
The
hopefully.
town clerk tells me that formally we have to put it on an agenda and then make a decision.
Oh, right, okay.
So, but we'll do that very
And
quickly.
then I think similarly, when we put the bid in, I think members who are also TDC councillors, they can support it as TDC councillors as well, because then you can make a choice on a bid if there's more than one of us trying to bid for it.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you and best of luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That would be great.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you for giving us the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jan.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. So are we to the following?
Next item is minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of June.
I've got my iPad. So,
Are there two records? Or are there any matters of?
Chair, may I highlight that we've missed the numbering on one item. Election of a vice chair should have been 040. And so that will be amended.
So that first, can you? Before the minutes.
Yes.
Nominations for vice chair for the remainder of the year.
what?
Can't hear you very well, David. Sorry.
Election of vice chair for the remainder of this committee for the remainder of the year.
That was the last set of minutes,
Did it?
Chair, I think.
So it's just that within the minutes, we haven't given a number to that item.
Sorry.
So that should have been 040. The minute should have been 041.
I'm sorry, Tricia. I did know you were vice chair.
Sorry, formally again.
Okay.
If anybody else would
You
like.
need a proposal that we accept the minutes,
Yes, please.
Chair? Okay.
Is that seconded? All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried.
Thanks to you.
Okay.
Wish.
Yep. There are updates on various items on the minutes that the town clerk will run through.
With regard to the milk floats, the first milk float has had all the external work undertaken. There's now some internal work that'll be undertaken by the lead supervisor. With your permission, there is a further update that I'd like to give when we move to the confidential section, because there is a staffing management matter related to the milk floats. The council chamber IT and live streaming and the screen, this is now in place and has been used successfully on a couple of meetings now. At the moment, only the digital communications and marketing officer is aware of how to use this equipment.
We're fine with that.
The next step is for myself and the deputy town clerk to be taught how to use it, so that we don't have to, so that Mr Williams doesn't have to attend every single meeting.
Too much power.
Chair, perhaps we could put a soft focus filter on I'm aware that my head is a bit sharp.
Join the club.
With regard to the Harbour Street gate, the fabricator has just come back from a holiday and informed the town promoter that unfortunately the gate cannot be cut with a laser cutter as originally intended, and it's going to be cut with water and very fine sand, which will stop the yes, it's apparently the way it needs to be done. It has the project. It has been confirmed that this will not affect the budget. It will still come in on budget. It had been hoped that the gate would be in place or put in on the 27th of the month, and this coincides with KCC themselves closing the road for some repair work. unfortunately, it is looking like that's going to be too tight, on the, to get everything done, which is the water jet cutters, the galvanisers and the powder coating, that unfortunately the 27th of October is just going to be, too tight. The town promoter is now in correspondence with KCC to see whether there's another option or whether for fitting it in as soon as possible. Hopefully, we won't have to submit a road closure request and wait 12 weeks. She's trying to see what she can negotiate there. Welcome back, Ramsgate. The purchase of various items, the order was made, however, unfortunately, it came back that these prices were no longer correct. So the lead technician has requested updated prices, and that is still awaited. In the meantime, the town promoter is considering, is there any other projects underway at the moment that this could be funded from instead of RTC's funds?
What, you mean outside bodies with?
Yes. Okay. And those are the updates that I'm aware of, Chair.
Unless there are any questions, I think we just note those. Yep, I propose that we note them. Seconded. All those in favour?
Yeah.
The next item then is, the accounts.
Thank you.
Deputy
Yeah.
Town Clerk.
So I've updated the report to the 30th of September. We've now received the second payment of the precept, so we've had all the precept in. I'm still waiting for the VAT refund to surface. All the accounts are absolutely fine. There's no overspend or anything, we're absolutely fine. We've just recently moved to a 3-year contract for green energy, which is what the council was very keen on. So that's 36 months contract. That's been organised by ESS for us, the company that finds us the best deals. External audit has been completed in the past with no issues, and that will be brought to council on the 27th of October. With the staffing accounts, because we've taken the town promoter in-house, I've had to move money from the budget for town promotion into the staffing budget, so that's all been done. So the budget has been reduced from 58.5 to 44,408 to accommodate her wages. She still has the £3,000 expenses allowance as well. Apart from that, everything is on track. I don't have any issues at all to report.
Hugely reassuring, Eileen.
Yeah.
You're to be congratulated.
Yes.
Thank you. Fine. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Yep.
Chair, I think it's a good idea the town promoters come in-house, as it were. Is there any particular reason why that has happened?
It's about the contract, wasn't it?
Two reasons really. One is we don't think it's a good idea to have people on rolling contracts. It's, you know, if it's going to go on from year to year to year, we think it's right to bring it in-house and offer proper employment terms. And I think it suits the current post as well. Yes, Eileen?
Chair, we've also combined the role, so town promoter is also the manager for the VIC. So we combined that, and Rebecca has so many contacts, hopefully she'll be able to get some more volunteers through the winter, so that when we open fully in sort of spring, Easter time, that we will have enough volunteers to cover those shifts.
I'm so sorry, sister. Would it be possible, I'm so sorry, sir, to collect up those booklets that we gave.
Yes.
Just because they're in a position of flux, as you can imagine. So sorry to disturb, I really am.
Fine.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your time.
Thanks. Okay, cheers. Bye.
Good evening.
There may be,
Trouble ahead.
I agree, there may be some slight adjustments to the job description. Councillor Piper.
Thank you, Chair. I note the comment about, we have one vacancy for a mayor's driver. Is that a mayor's driver or is it a town sergeant? And are we actually doing anything about advertising vacancy at the moment, please? Is there an update on that?
It would be for a town sergeant.
Chair, may I provide more information? The deputy town clerk will hopefully step in if I'm incorrect. But I believe that recruitment was started, but then during the lockdown, a driver was not required. And so those applications were stood down. But now that the mayor is attending many more events, there's a lot more things happening. Only this morning, I confirmed with my colleagues that the job description and the salary had indeed been confirmed by the council, and they have previously been. So I believe that it's appropriate to launch back into recruiting.
And it's the role of a town sergeant and driver.
Yeah, town sergeant. It is vitally important that the mayor does not go out with the chain unaccompanied.
Yeah.
Council actually agreed for a driver. The job is advertised as a driver as opposed to the
That's
title
why I'm
town
asking.
sergeant.
Oh, right.
But we can,
Yeah.
Perhaps we should, I think we should change that.
Oh.
Okay.
Might attract a different sort of person too.
Well, British Legion might be a good place to recruit.
Any other questions? What do we do? Those that we accept the report?
Seconded, yeah.
All those in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. And the next item is the Ramsgate Fund. You again, Ali?
No, for you. Okay, the Ramsgate Fund was something that the Ramsgate Charter Trustees started, and when this council was created, it decided to carry on with it. That was back in 2009. The budget is 35,000. An applicant can request 10% of that, a maximum of 10% at 3,500. The criteria basically says that it should be capital items only, and council wanted to have another look at this criteria because it is it's underspent every year. It's underspent. We don't get enough applications in. So you wanted to have a look. There's a couple of things, there's three things that the town clerk has pointed out that we cannot change, which is, the first one is the project must be of benefit to the residents of Ramsgate. We can't change that. We also can't change that the funds provided must be accounted for by the town council. They have to give me a returns form and show where the money has gone. And all their invoices must be made available to the town council. Those three things we have to leave in. So number 2 on the criteria is must be open to all in the catchment area. Projects should have a long-term benefit but will be examined on a case-by-case basis. You've always looked at them as individual applications.
If members want to change any one, could you speak up as Eileen goes through?
Can I ask a question? Do we know why the Charter Trustees set it up like this? Was, for example, why it was capital only? Do we know what the thinking was behind that?
The thinking behind that was that we didn't want the council to be in a position where a group was relying on funding,
So revenue funding on a regular basis?
relying on that to exist.
Okay.
That responsibility.
Okay. So it wasn't to do with the sort of long-term nature of a capital item, it was more to do with that?
Well, I think that was,
regular funding.
I think that was part of it, but the worry was
that some groups might be reliant. Okay, get it. Thank you.
Thank you. That it should not be used to replace lost funding from KCC or TDC. Match funding may be required. I don't think, from memory, that we've ever required match funding. No. It should not be used for revenue expenditure, so therefore capital. And if more than one application is submitted in a financial year, it will be deferred to the end of the financial year. We've only ever had that happen once. So they put an application in. If there's money left in the pot at the end of the year, financial year, then you will consider the second application, but not before. So that is the criteria for this fund.
Do any members wish to go ahead?
Thank you, Chair. Looking through it, and I'm sorry, I was anticipating getting to the end and then doing this. My own view would be that 1 and 2 should remain. 3 could easily be removed without harming the purpose of it. 4 should remain. 5 could be removed without harming the purpose of it. 6, I think, should remain, but perhaps on a case-to-case basis. What we don't want to be doing is an organisation coming through with a bid where most of the money is actually going to pay the people who are organising the event rather than purchasing things for the event itself. 7 and 8 obviously must remain. 9, wouldn't it just be easier to say 1 application only per year, per financial year? That's just a suggestion. Sorry if that...
Yes, Councillor Rusty.
I'm broadly in support of Councillor Piper's suggestions. I think perhaps we could say something like should normally be used for capital items, but we'll, consider all that kind of thing. I'm wondering about the must be open to all in the catchment area, in the sense that, for example, if you had a project that was only going to support people with a physical disability, I don't imagine we would want to discount that, even though obviously it might not be open to people who are able-bodied. So I think, we would want to set the criteria in such a way that it doesn't discriminate against participation, but on the other hand, it could be for a very particular group. And I think as councillors, we might well want to support that sort of an application. I don't know how we word that.
I think when it says catchment area, it just means Ramsgate.
Yes.
Yes, but
I'm thinking about we might want to support a project that was only going to be open to people under the age of 25 or something like that, depending on its merits. So the open to all, I think, there might be a better way of phrasing it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Substitute all with the word residents? Open to residents in the catchment area?
Chair?
Yep.
May I say, if we're saying that, I think that's then covered already under item 1. Project must be for the benefit of residents.
Ramsgate, we could leave it out. Yeah, so we could leave it out.
And I thought we'd had situations, and this is from my very senior memory.
Go on.
For example, the Sea Scouts, who take kids from all over the planet, and we talked about that at the time, that it wasn't exclusively for Ramsgate.
It's
was that this fund?
I thought we had a laptop issue, didn't we, as well, that was attached to this fund where people in Broadstairs had access to.
Of benefit
Yes,
to the residents
benefit.
of Ramsgate, it says, it doesn't say exclusively of benefit to the residents of Ramsgate, does it?
The thing with the Sea Cadets is, it's the name.
Yes.
And it's based in Ramsgate, I think it amalgamated.
Yes.
And it is children for.
You wouldn't say you can't participate in this.
No, I mean, we did give them the money, didn't we? Yeah, but we talked about it.
That's common sense, isn't it?
I think one, as it's worded, would allow us,
One is fine.
and did allow us to do that.
Yes.
I must admit, I am concerned about, using it for revenue expenditure. I do think we need something like a time limit on, or a number of times that we would do that, or
Yes.
just to avoid this possibility that groups come to rely on it.
Every year come back, yes.
But then we'd use our own discretion about that, presumably.
Can I just, I mean, we're often relying on sort of like Eileen's memory with regards to who comes back every year. So if you're only in a 4-year term, you don't know who's like been applying for like the last 8 years or something. So wouldn't it be better also to have a record of what last year's money went to when we were presented with an application or something, so that we could see who were the repeat offenders? That's not what I mean. What's the word? Applicants. That's the word. Yeah.
To be honest with you, we don't have that many repeats.
Yes.
Because it's called capital, they tend to come along and say, for example, Sea Cadets, and this isn't exact, they may have applied for furniture.
Yes.
But they wouldn't come back for anything more.
Yes, but wasn't that from my slightly less senior but senior memory, wasn't that one of the issues of some people are coming back to do different things with different parts of a building and so on and so forth? So they are returning, they're just returning with a different idea. So if we had a diary of things that were given and so on and so forth when the application came in, so that we could look at that particular group or company or resident or whatever, then we could look at the history of it, and then that would help us make a decision.
The form is very similar to the events fund form, and they are supposed to list when they've received money before, but I can easily do a spreadsheet which shows you who has applied for the last financial year and into the new one as it goes along.
Super, thank you.
Councillor Knight.
What I remember of this is it does seem to be the same people coming back, or the same organisations. I wonder if that's because it's not well advertised.
We should promote it.
And the people who apply for it are people who know about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So perhaps a bit more wider advertising in terms of its availability and what it's all about might be useful in drawing new applicants in, if that's possible.
Can we do that?
It is advertised. It's advertised on our social media and our website.
Yeah.
It's also, I believe, it goes in community ad, which goes into thousands of letters.
I've seen that one.
We advertise both funds every other magazine.
Yeah, and you push it on when it's due. It is pushed on
It's
social
pushed on.
media as well.
That's good.
So, that's fine.
And of course, it's open to councillors to advertise it within their wards.
I was going to say,
Yeah, we do.
I went round the bowling club, the schools, all the different places in our ward, to tell them about it.
Well done.
And I think the bowling club was the only one that actually applied, but they did know about it.
Former
The
councillor,
newsletter.
former councillor is actually coming to see me with community group to apply as well. So anybody.
But people ought to make sure that their ward knows about it. That's really true.
So I think we have a motion from Councillor Brown. Remember what it was?
I can read through what it was, if you're happy for me to. Number one, stay, because it must.
Yep.
Remove number two, following debate, although Councillor Piper didn't say that. Councillor Piper felt that number three, projects should be a long-term benefit but will be examined on a case-by-case basis. Remove that. Okay. Leave-in should not be used to replace lost funding from KCC or TDC. Remove match funding, may be required. Should not be used for revenue expenditure. And Councillor Austin came in with, should normally be used for capital items. Do you want, is that what you wanted me to add, or?
Is that okay?
I think if members are happy with that, I can live with that, yeah.
Yeah, is that enough wording for you, Councillor Austin?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I assume if somebody gets in touch, if a new group gets in touch with you, they'll ask you about what they can use it for, won't they? And then you can explain that under normal circumstances, but we might make an exception in a particular case.
Generally, I say it's worth applying, because council will decide. It's not for me to decide, not to bring it to you, so I always say apply, and then council will decide. Okay, that's fine. Number 7 has to stay, number 8. And for number 9, amend it so that it says if more than one application is actually
amend it to only one application.
Only one application is to be submitted in a financial year.
Financial year.
Yeah. Is everyone happy with that?
I'm okay with that.
Is there a seconder for that? Yeah. All those in favour? That's carried.
Thank
you. Next item then is 20 is plenty, and it's a report that you've received because you asked for one from me after I had done 2 things, I think. One was a consultation with the people that would be affected, which with the help of Dean and the Town Council's website, we did. And I think it was about 70% of the people that filled in the questionnaire, about 75% were in favour, 20% against. The ones that were against were mainly concerned with the danger of there being other traffic calming measures required, like policemen or whatever. They did not want that. And I think I was able to reassure most of those that wouldn't be required, because that's what KCC had told me. The other problem was the finance, and I have been less successful in that. The Town Council kindly offered to cover the actual physical requirements, which amounted to £1,700. But then KCC wanted £2,500 for what they call a traffic regulation order. And I've listed from them all the components that they have to go through to make it legal. Councillor Constantine offered £500 to part fund that. Councillor Shunk, although he said he was in favour, has not offered any money to add to that. So we're short of, whatever it is, £2,000 to pay for what is essentially KCC's admin costs, which the council was reluctant to fund. So council has 2 options, I think. But I can go back to Councillor Shunk and perhaps persuade him to part with £500. So the 2 options are to stump up the rest of the money, or, as Councillor Dan Watkins, Vice Chair of KCC Transport Committee, suggested, promote the scheme in KCC's next year's budget. They're the two options. I'm in your hands, really.
Just for clarity, please, Chair, is it 1,700 plus 2,500?
Yes.
Or, so we're looking at 4,000?
1,800 is for the actual physical road marking signs.
Road signs, and the 2,500
is purely for the team.
Advertising.
Their time, for their admin.
Of which we have £500.
How does this fit in with the highways action plan that we are supposed to be doing? Can it be part of it, or would that delay it too much, or?
It would be part of it if it fitted in time-wise, but I don't think it would help finance, because KCC tell me that although they'll agree a transport plan with a parish council, the council still has to find the money.
Well, if we do a highways action plan, I would hope that KCC might do one or two things on it. No? Is there any point?
I have experience of a highways improvement plan, and KCC will give admin support to one project per year, and that's to help work it up to a certain point, after which the town and parish councils pay for the traffic regulation order, the implementation. They will give admin support to the early stages. I say one project because it could be possible.
And to be fair, they have done that with this project.
But what if we said in our highways improvement plan that we want a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit throughout Ramsgate?
Which is what we intend to say in our neighbourhood plan.
Yeah. How will they react to that? They'll say, well, it'll cost you £3 million and we're not going to pay it. Is that what they'll say? Right, okay.
Herne Bay is going down that route at the moment.
Right.
Every time.
And even though they've got the vice chair of the transport committee behind it, he's a Herne Bay councillor, he's still having to find the funding.
Okay. So, sorry, that's slightly digressing from what your bit was.
I'm not sure if this is a sensible question or not, but I just remember when I went to the Vision Zero presentation from KCC that there was a lot of talk about the whole of Faversham or Folkestone, one of those towns that begins with F anyway, having adopted the 20's Plenty thing as a pioneering town to have done the whole thing.
I think it's Faversham, but whether it's actually happened, I don't know.
It has happened, and it was being promoted and talked about wonderfully at the whole Vision Zero presentation. I can see our town clerk wants to share, if I may.
I've received from the town clerk of Faversham all the reports and the related paperwork for how they achieved that. And we'll share it with the members.
They were talking very positively at the event, and I did circulate my notes from the event. So it's kind of mentioned in there, but it was...
Because Broadstairs have adopted it as an aspiration too, that they implemented it. Yes, Councillor Light.
I think you've got to bite the bullet here and pay it, if you want to get it done quickly. And if you think it's worthwhile, it's got 70% support, so you say.
How is it enforced, though?
Sorry?
How is it enforced?
KCC say that they're largely self-enforcing, but also they will supply a group of residents with a, I've forgotten what they call it now, but it's a speed gun.
The gun.
I'm working with the local police and I'm in contact with the PCSOs. They measure, speeds, and if somebody is speeding, they get a knock on the door from the PCSO and told not to do it again. And if they persist, they're fined.
Like Linda Snow.
Councillor Nixon.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, again, at the Vision Zero, there was a presentation from the Speedwatch doing that, and the gun is not the only option. There is a board that actually highlights the actual speed you're doing.
Oh, yes.
So if you're doing 40 or 30 or 15, and it comes with a smiley face or a sad face, so it's an immediate reward.
Solar power.
They train a group of volunteers and they write down the number plates of the people that are speeding. No further action is taken apart from the smiley or sad face. But if there's a repeat offender, they come back, they get a letter. And then if they repeat again, they get another letter. And then if they repeat again, they get a knock on the door with the police delivering another letter. There is no fine as a result of the volunteer Speedwatch programme, but if there is an obvious problem, then the police will start to come in and say, okay, here is a place where we need to step in and do something more than just the volunteers and the smiley faces.
Well, I must say the local PCSOs appear to be wanting to help. Councillor Nixon.
I'm in agreement with Councillor Knight, I'll be honest with you, because I think for the sake of £2,000, I know this is money and we've got other parts of Ramsgate and all the rest of it, but I think if we don't start the precedent, then we're not going to see the results of it. And I always have in my mind, it's a case of like, £2,000 versus a child's life, which is the first thing that springs into my thoughts. And I would rather go for it than procrastinate and wait for Kent County Council that will always kick something into the long grass. As we've always talked about, sort of like taking ownership of what we're doing. It galls me as much as it does the rest of the councillors, I'm sure, about giving any money to either Thanet District Council or Kent County Council when we're meant to be getting help from them. But for something like this, I would propose that we actually front the cost.
I'd agree with that. It's piloting, I think, is what Councillor Makinson said, and about the whole town.
And with regards that going forward, we have it for the whole of Ramsgate or the central bit going forward, not just one ward. Also, Town Clerk, I noticed in Sandwich, because I go there quite a lot, there's 20 mile an hour speed limits there. So how did you get the money for that?
It was in place for a long time and it was funded by KCC back.
Not that long. 7 years maybe?
No, I think we're going back about 20.
20?
It's...
Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. I've got to be devil's advocate for a second. I mean, clearly I agree with the sentiments behind it all. But we did have quite a lively discussion last time and we sort of said £1,700. And whilst I appreciate what our chair says about it's only 2,000, it's actually not, it's 4,900 if you put the other 1,700 in with it as well. And I think the parts of Nethercourt area that I'm familiar with, in the area around where the football ground is, you'd be hard pressed to do much more than 5 mile an hour around there. But the other part of Nethercourt, the fairly well-to-do part of Nethercourt, where you go up towards the big roundabout and so on, that large estate over on the right, is they are not, as far as I can tell, financially deprived in that area. I could argue, for example, that the Clements Road area and Nixon Avenue and Pullman Close and Lorena Road and all around there, where we have a dreadful problem of speeding traffic in the Northwood ward, would seemingly require another 5,000 for something to be done there. So I think whatever we do, we would need to be careful that we don't set one ward against the other. And why have they got money from the central town budget, and we haven't. So I just kind of throw that in there. It's likely that Newington, of course, is a rat run.
That already has it.
Bush Avenue and Melbourne.
That already has it.
Yeah, well, yes, they have parts of it, but believe me, I'm around there quite a lot. Nobody takes any notice of it. But anyway, I just throw that in, that we could find ourselves the target of some disgruntled residents who say, well, when are they going to do something about these kids on their electric scooters at 40 mile an hour down the middle of Nixon Avenue?
I think that's a good point, but at least we know now the hoops that you've got to go through.
Of course.
To get this far.
I said before, I thought you'd done an excellent piece of work when we met last time. It was a great piece of work.
Councillor Rizeki.
Just a quick point, Chair. Maybe what we're looking at this at the moment, we're looking at as a fund for one ward possibly or whatever. Maybe we should have a bigger fund that we could use amongst all the wards, where we as a council are saying, yes, in principle, we want to go down to 20 miles an hour, and to achieve that, maybe for the next 5 years, or I mean, that's just a time span off the top of my head, we're going to pay £15,000 a year into a fund to achieve that around the whole of the town. So maybe we shouldn't be looking at this as being, oh look, we've got to find 4,900 for the Nethercourt ward, but maybe we should look and say, well, how about let's chuck 15 grand into a pot, and then the wards can put in for, can we have it please, or can we have some towards it, or can we look at putting some of that towards a funding stream to do it for the whole town?
Is that a proposal, Councillor?
If you'd like to have it as a proposal, I will quite happily propose that, as I think it's a sensible way forward, but that would be up to my
Seconded.
councillors to.
Hang on, Town Clerk.
Sorry, I believe the first proposal on the table was from councillor Nixie, seconded by councillor for the 2,000 to be spent progressing the work at Nethercourt, and that this would be the second proposal on the table.
Okay, so we're debating the first proposal.
Okay, thank you, councillor Rodetsky. I was going to come to exactly what you said with regards to councillor Piper's comment. I mean, first of all, yes, it's 3,900, not 4,900, as you inaccurately said. However, we agreed the 1,700 originally because we were looking into see whether we could get KCC funding from the councillors. So that's why we limited it to that, first of all. And as we've discussed, it's a rolling programme, isn't it? So it's just a case of like, this is the first ward that's done it. So it's definitely not putting any ward versus any other ward. It's a case of like, where can we roll it out first? Simply, and David's done a lot of legwork for the Nethercourt estate, which obviously isn't the whole of the Nethercourt ward, but it's an area that we can use this for. So with that, I think it's quite important that we start it, but whether we'll vote on my proposal afterwards. But with what was secondly proposed, then I agree fully, because it needs funding effectively, doesn't it?
That's the rest.
I just wanted to remind people, I think we discussed at the last meeting, that KCC had approved the idea of the Nethercourt estate specifically because it was a discrete estate and therefore a good pilot.
Yes.
And that's not in any way to say that, I mean, you know, Nixon Avenue, for heaven's sake, yes, of course it needs it. But this is a first step. And can I also add that my recommendation would be to support going ahead with this, but also to go back to Councillor Shonk and point out that Councillor Constantine has donated and etc.
I'll do that. Shall we put that to the vote then? That we fund the.
We do. Yeah.
Hopefully £2,000 because we'll get funded.
I was thinking 2. I wasn't such a 4.
That's what. Sorry, Chair. That's why I was increasing the amount, for the simple fact that
we'll come back to that.
We could.
In a minute.
So we'll vote on the first proposal.
Yeah.
All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Right, now.
I abstain.
Oh, you abstain, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. Then we have a second proposal, which was to set up a fund. Did you mention an amount?
I didn't. 10 to 15,000 a year that we can, obviously we can get that from precept or whatever, but I mean, 10 to 15, if we're looking to push this forward in any reasonable space of time, we've got to be looking at doing at least a couple of wards a year.
Yeah.
And we're now looking at, we're talking at least around £5,000 per ward or coming towards that. So anything less than 10 wouldn't be adequate.
So then wards would bid against that fund.
And wards would bid against it, so maybe 10 or 15,000, let's say 15,000 and go for it, that we could get probably 3 or even 4 wards done over the next year.
I like the fact that this is part of, excuse me, sorry. It's part of the ward that we're looking, it's part of it, so we don't actually have the cost for a full ward.
Wards would bid for parts.
The Nethercourt estate is relatively cheap to do because there's only one entrance and one exit.
Rest of Nethercourt,
Yeah.
I'm quite supporting of that, but I would like to hear a little bit more when the town clerk has got those papers from the Faversham, because they actually, I think, did it town. They didn't do piecemeal, they did it as a block. So I think it might be worth, rather than just thinking about ward by ward by ward by ward, or even half a ward.
Councillor Piper.
Sorry, Chair, the town clerk.
Madam Chair, I think when we start to formulate the highways improvement plan, you'll be asked to set your priorities within that plan, and having that comprehensive list, you'll then be able to start to think, well, these things could be grouped together, these things make sense to be done together, these could be highway safety, these are accessibility, and that will help shape how projects could be moved forward.
Councillor Piper.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just, I think, tied up with what I was saying about not wanting different wards arguing with who should have this and who should have that. I'm a bit concerned about wards bidding for money. It may be that, for example, the yobbos down Nixon Avenue have got no interest in slowing their speed down, so you get no feedback from them at all. I think I would prefer a slightly more scientific approach involving TDC in as much as they can for the head of Safer Neighbourhoods Department, the community safety meetings, the PCSOs, the police, in terms of how much, most of the offences are civil, but how many offences occur in a particular region that would indicate, so there's external evidence to back up the money going to that area, rather than simply a group of residents thinking, I want to keep all the vehicles out of my street.
I mean, I think we should certainly be informed.
I know this is early days.
I think certainly we should be informed by this information, to make a decision. But I think the initiative needs to come from the ward.
I think if I'm...
Councillor Knight first.
Go on, yes.
I mean, I think I support this. This has taken a long time to get off in Nethercourt. I don't know what the timescale was. You'll tell me how long this has taken.
About a year.
I suspect all the other boroughs, all the other wards are going to have to do the same amount of work to get their bid in. So I like the idea of putting money aside on a yearly basis, so that when the proposals do come through, we have funding in place. And I think it's a good idea. If we can afford it, I think it's a worthwhile thing to do, to put money into this fund for this specific purpose. Yeah, I agree.
I was just thinking, I was assuming the bid was a combination of residents' willingness to want this, but also the scientific evidence. I didn't think it was just a case of like, we want it the most or anything. So exactly that. So I would have assumed, because aren't we looking at Ramsgate as trying to make it the safest place we can, aren't we, as opposed to, you know, exactly who shouts the loudest. So I took that as rote, really.
Can we afford it, Town Clerk?
I'm sure. But now's the perfect time of the year so that it can be considered for the next year, financial year's budget.
Councillor Mackinson.
could all councillors start thinking about their own wards, what they'd like to, completely unscientifically at the moment, but that can come later. If everybody could start thinking, I mean, I know Dumpton Park Road, there's speed down there like mad.
Yeah.
Where I live, and all the children cross the road, they speed up there. But we'll all have our own priorities, so if we could all make a list that somehow or another we will have to start combining.
Don't all rush at once, but I found the KCC officer, Richard Heaps, very helpful.
And Paul Valek's been very helpful as well. They're doing Harbour Street and the High Street because of my nagging.
Well done.
Hooray! I don't know, they're probably going to do it anyway.
You've done that.
Yeah.
There's an officer called Louise Winch who's responsible for the highways improvement plans. And actually that was, something I was going to do was start collating everybody's ideas, but to come back to council for approval. Louise is a single officer covering all of Kent, everybody's highways improvement plans.
So we need, yes.
Can I just add in for information when we're thinking about highways improvement plans that we need to link this in with the neighbourhood plan, because we've been looking at 20-minute neighbourhoods and blocking rat runs and all those kinds of things, and we're not in a position as neighbourhood plan to insist on that, but there'll be a series of recommendations that obviously need to dovetail properly with the highways improvement plan.
So we need to vote on councillor Rozeka's
Do we have a seconder?
motion.
I'll second it.
Don't we have a second? I thought we had.
No, we do now.
All those in favour? Gates? It's carried. I think that's the end of the. Yes, now need to exclude the press and public. Have to read
So
that
if
out.
we can have a motion to vote on to exclude them, please.
Yeah. I'll propose that we exclude the press and public from the rest of the meeting. All those in favour?